Hello and welcome to Boring History and Sleep. Wherever you are in the world, whether you're nestled in a cottage by the English moors, lying in a sun-drenched room in California, or drifting off in the quiet corners of Helsinki, this story is for you. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you're listening, from, what time it is, and how you're feeling. Your presence, your quiet breath, your company across space and time, it all matters. If you find yourself returning here, if these gentle journeys help you rest, then perhaps take a moment to subscribe. No alarms, no noise, just the promise of another soft tale when the night calls you again. Now close your eyes. Let the past unfold. Tonight the stars above you are not your own. They belong to a sky older than empires, older than pyramids, older than myths spoken in whispers by torchlight. A sky watched by people who built cities from mud and dreams. Sumer. The word alone is already dust. It tastes of heat, of clay, of something half remembered and half imagined. You are not in your bed anymore. You are standing barefoot on sun-warmed stone in the shadow of a ziggurat whose bricks were laid 5,000 years ago. The air is thick with incense, with the sweat of oxen, with the cries of merchants and priests and children who will one day become bones lost in sand. You hear a woman singing in a language no longer spoken, her voice trembling like the reeds beside the river. And above it all, statues loom carved from stone that once shimmered in the sun, faces worn by time, yet eyes still watching. Gods. Not the gods you know, not Zeus, not Odin, not Yahweh. These are the forgotten ones, the gods of the very beginning, the gods of the Tigris and the Euphrates, gods who once ruled not only heaven and earth but also grain and wind, dreams and vengeance, lovers and death. Their names have fallen silent, their temples now swallowed by mud and history. But for a few quiet moments tonight, as your eyelids grow heavy and your breath deepens, they will live again, not as deities to be worshipped, but as characters in a tale as old as memory itself. Tonight you'll walk the streets of Ur at dawn. You'll kneel beside the sacred river and watch a priestess whisper to a painted idol. You'll feel the fear of a farmer who angers the storm god, the longing of a mother who prays to a goddess for a child she'll never hold. You will hear the drums, you will feel the dust, you will remember what was never yours to remember. Let it all wash over you like warm wind. Let the world fade, let history cradle you. Now let's begin. You awaken to the sound of temple bells. They do not ring sharply, no. Their voices are round and hollow like bronze bowls gently tapped by silk-covered mallets. The first tone arrives like a dream slipping through a window, soft, deep, and resonant, stirring your breath more than your ears. It rolls through the streets of Ur, across mud-brick rooftops and over sleeping goats and drowsy guards, as the copper sky blushes just before dawn. You lie on a woven mat, one arm curled beneath your head, your other hand resting on your chest. The mat smells of palm leaves and dust. A slight breeze carries the scent of sheep dung and wet clay. Somewhere nearby a baby stirs and cries once, then returns to sleep. It's not your child. It belongs to the neighbor with a cracked tooth and kind eyes who sells garlic and figs near the city wall. The second bell tolls. This one feels closer. It hums through your bones, like a memory you didn't know you had. The priests will be walking now, barefoot in their linen robes, their heads freshly shaved, their hands cupped as they move through shadowed corridors toward the ziggurat's narrow stairs. You imagine them by candlelight, eyes, half-closed lips, moving in chant so old no one remembers when they began. You sit up slowly, the morning air cool against your skin. The wall before you is painted with faded red ochre, the figure of a fish with human eyes, a god of the river who once saved a child from drowning, or so your grandmother said. Beneath it, a clay pot of water still as glass. You drink. The water is warm, tasting faintly of smoke and copper. Outside the city breathes. You step through the doorway into the still sleeping alley. The ground is hard and cracked, still damp in patches from the night's dew. A thin cat slinks by, eyes glowing briefly as it vanishes behind a basket of wilted greens. Farther ahead, two boys with sleepy faces are dragging baskets toward the river, already whispering about fish and sandals and coins they hope to find. Their voices are not urgent. Nothing is not yet. And above it all the ziggurat looms. Its silhouette cuts against the lightening sky like the spine of a god too ancient to kneel. Each level stacked high with precision, thousands of bricks bearing marks from hands long buried. Smoke curls gently from its summit, incense, you think. A prayer rising. Your feet carry you toward it without thought. The streets are familiar, winding like veins through a body of stone. You pass a shuttered stall with a hanging scale, a wall etched with warnings about unpaid debts, a carved lion whose head is missing. Everything smells of yesterday, and yet it is all new again under this pale awakening light. At the edge of the temple court you stop. The priest-child is there. He is perhaps 10, perhaps younger, his face painted with blue lines that mark him as chosen. He stands with his eyes closed, a bowl of barley in his hands. He does not tremble. Behind him an older priest swings a censer, and the smoke wraps around them both like mist. The boy will not speak today. It is the day of silence for the chosen child. He is not to eat, nor laugh, nor cry. Only carry, only wait, only listen. The bell rings again. You wonder which god hears it. Is it Inanna, goddess of war and sex and morning stars, who walks with lions and wears blood as perfume? Is it Enki, the clever one, the one who gave humans language and then regretted it? Or is it one of the others, those half-remembered names etched in crumbling walls and misread tablets, Ninsun, Namtar, Dumuzid, names like shadows beautiful in their obscurity? The boy turns very slightly. His eyes are still closed, but for a moment you feel as though he sees you. You hold your breath. A dog barks in the distance, then falls silent. A woman begins to sweep her doorstep behind you, the straw bristles hissing over stone. Time does not pass. It pools warm and golden in this courtyard of forgotten gods. Then movement. A slow procession begins from the temple gate. 4 men in dark robes carry a litter covered in gold cloth. Upon it sits a statue not tall, not grand, but heavy with meaning. Its eyes are set with lapis lazuli, its hands carved in a gesture of both welcome and warning. The god is going to bathe. As they carry it past you, incense and myrrh cloud the air, and you feel your thoughts drift like smoke. You follow. So does everyone. Old men with bent backs and daughters who carry water jugs. Soldiers with polished blades who never kneel but always nod. A blind man with a copper bell tied to his wrist. A baker with flour in her hair. The procession is silent save for the bells and the slow beat of a drum you cannot see, but always feel in your chest, in your teeth, in the soles of your feet. You do not ask where they are going. You already know. They walk toward the river, toward the god's reflection, toward the place where divine and human become indistinguishable for a breath or two. The path will be muddy. The ritual will be slow. But for now, you only walk. With the boy, with the god, with the memory of every step like this that came before and every step that will follow long after you are dust. And the bell rings again. The sun is higher now, casting long gold across the baked clay streets of Nippur. You feel it on your shoulder, warm but not yet harsh. The light has a softness in these early hours, sifting through the wooden slats above the market stalls, touching every surface with the hush of awakening. The city murmurs with the breath of daily life. Low voices bartering sandals, scuffing across stone donkeys, braying in impatience, as if they've already seen the day's work and grown weary of it. You're not alone. The square is stirring. To your left, a woman arranges dyed linen across a carved plank, her fingers working fast, her head covered in a scarf that's seen many summers. She doesn't look up, but she hums something wordless old. Maybe a lullaby, maybe a song of praise. There's a sweetness in it, but also something tired, like a pot that's been mended too many times. On the other side of the square, a group of young boys gather near a fig seller. They pretend to argue about prices, but really they're just hoping she'll laugh and toss them one for free. She does. The fig lands in the dust. One boy lunges too quickly, another shoves. They tumble and wrestle until a passing guard clears his throat, and they scatter barefoot and grinning. The fig seller sighs and shakes her head, but you catch the way her mouth softens after. In the center of the square stands the statue of a lion, or rather what's left of it. Its mane has eroded its face, weathered down to a suggestion of teeth and pride. The eyes are deep-set hollows now filled with dirt, and offerings a broken bead, a sprig of dried myrrh, a coin so thin it looks like a fingernail. Children climb on its back sometimes, but not today. Today, an old man is sitting beside it, slowly peeling a pomegranate with the care of someone who has nowhere else to be. And you simply wander, not as a seller, not as a buyer, not even as a pilgrim today. You are a breath drifting through a city built on breath, your sandals carrying the dust of other streets, your eyes catching moments as if they were birds on a branch. A girl with ash on her cheek, walking with a basket of onions. A man with no toes selling copper blades. A priest with red paint on his eyelids, whispering to the sky. You pass a stall of incense, thick sticks of frankincense and crushed leaves tied in bundles. The scent coils around you like old memory, like temples and mothers' robes, like something sacred and slightly burnt. The seller is blind in one eye. He doesn't greet you with words, but lifts a single stick, lights it without question, and places it in a bowl of sand near your hand. The smoke spirals upward. A gift. You nod. No coin is needed. There are no walls here between the holy and the everyday. The market square is both. Here, someone sells honey beside a man who chants oracles for coppers. A butcher wipes blood from his blade with one hand and pats a child's head with the other. A thief walks by unnoticed, or perhaps just ignored, his hand slipping into pockets with the care of a lover's touch. Life is a swirl, a dance, a breath that rises from the earth and returns to it by dusk. Then a sudden change. The drums begin. Not loud, just 3 strikes spaced like footsteps. You pause mid-step. Others do too. A hush brushes through the crowd like wind through tall grass. The high priest has entered the square. You see him now, robed in white that shimmers despite the dust. He's not tall, not broad. But people move aside for him without being asked. He carries a staff carved with serpents, and behind him walk 2 acolytes, each holding small clay jars, oil and ash, or maybe salt and honey, or maybe just illusions of power. The priest does not speak. He merely walks to the lion statue, touches it once on the brow, and turns to face the east. The crowd does not kneel. Kneeling is for temples. But all eyes fall silent. And then something ancient occurs. He lifts the staff, slowly, deliberately. He traces a shape in the air, not a word, not a letter, but a symbol passed from priest to priest like a dream, unspoken, unchanged. The air thickens. The birds hush. Somewhere a dog whines low. The incense curls tighter. The high priest lowers the staff and pours a thin stream of oil into the lion's mouth. It trickles down, catching the light, and for a moment it looks like the statue weeps. The ritual ends as softly as it began. No words, no proclamation. He walks away. So does the crowd, as if nothing happened, as if it were only a cloud passing overhead. But you feel it, a vibration beneath your ribs. A quiet shift, like something very old stirring in its sleep. You turn to go, not knowing why your chest feels heavier, or why your fingers itch for a pen, or why the lion's eyes seem just a little deeper than before. As you walk past the fig seller, you catch a murmur, 2 old women speaking low in the shade of a faded awning. Did you see? One asks. The oil. It moved backward. The god is hungry, the other whispers. No, the first says. The god is forgotten. Their voices vanish into the air. You step into a patch of sunlight. The warmth feels sudden. The fig you'd taken earlier without meaning to rests in your hand. You bite into it slowly, the juice sticky on your fingers, sweet and earthy. And as you chew, you hear the bells again, distant, faint, but calling, always calling. And the day moves on. The sun has lifted higher, and now the air grows heavier. You find yourself near the School of Scribes, a quiet place of worn stone steps, low arches and walls etched with symbols left behind by generations of careful hands. It is not a temple, but it is sacred in its own way. Here truth is pressed into clay. Here names live longer than the bodies that bore them. Here the gods are not only worshipped, they are written. You do not knock. There is no door, only a curtain of woven reeds swaying in the heat. You step inside and blink as your eyes adjust to the cool dimness. A narrow window filters sunlight across the floor, landing on stacks of tablets, some drying, some wrapped, some still warm from the fingers that shaped them. The scent is unmistakable, damp clay, crushed reeds, old dust, and something like ink, but not quite. Bitumen, maybe, or history. A young scribe sits cross-legged in the corner. His posture is careful but not rigid. His tunic is stained at the knees, and his hair falls into his eyes as he leans over a fresh tablet. In one hand he holds a reed stylus sharpened to a fine point. In the other, nothing. His fingers tap rhythmically against his thigh, as if echoing a melody only he hears. You do not speak. He does not notice you. But you hear the soft scratch of reed on clay, the slow breathing, the occasional mutter of words under his breath. He is copying a prayer. You see it now. The shape of the cuneiform sign slowly rising in neat columns, each pressed with patient reverence. Not mere letters, but offerings, invocations, invitations to a god who may or may not be listening. The god in question is Enki, the clever one, the water-bearer, the dream-giver, the one who saved the world once with a warning and again with a trick. The prayer is long. You recognize the opening line. O Enki, lord of the abyss, whose tongue flows like rivers. The boy pauses. His eyes narrow. His lips move. Something's wrong. He leans closer to the tablet, squints at the line he just wrote, and frowns. He rubs a word away with the edge of a wet cloth, the fresh clay smearing under his thumb. Then he rewrites it slower, more carefully. You admire him for this. He is not afraid to be imperfect, only afraid to be unclear. That is the scribe's burden, not truth but clarity. A crooked line might last 1,000 years. A low voice murmurs behind you. You turn. An older man, the teacher, sits at a broad table, his hands stained black with ink, his gaze on the boy, but his words meant for you. Or perhaps for the air between you. He's gifted, the teacher says softly, but his gods are borrowed. You don't answer. You're not sure what he means. The teacher does not elaborate. He dips his reed into a pot, then begins writing on a larger tablet, something less poetic, more practical. An inventory, perhaps, names of grain buyers, or temple deliveries, or a list of debts that will outlive the debtors. You move deeper into the room. The walls here are lined with shelves, not of wood, but of mud and straw, hardened over time. They cradle rows of tablets like bones in a tomb. Some are tiny, no bigger than your palm. Others are heavy, thick with stories. You reach out and run a finger across one, the indentations still crisp. You feel the words like braille, like echoes. One catches your eye. It's older. The clay is darker, the script less refined, more angular. The stylus used here was broader, perhaps even cracked. But the marks are bold. You recognize a name, Nanshe, a goddess few now remember. She once ruled justice and prophecy. She weighed dreams and spoke truth over water. Her temples stood near the sea, and fishermen carved her name into the hulls of their boats. But there are no boats here now, only dust, and this record, this breath trapped in clay. You imagine her temple, white stone shells embedded in the walls, the sound of gulls overhead. You imagine her priestess hair braided with seaweed, voice echoing in the waves. You imagine a boy kneeling asking why his father never returned from the storm. You imagine the silence that followed. And still the scribe writes. He is finishing now. The prayer's last lines settle into place like birds landing in a field. He wipes his brow with his sleeve and exhales through his teeth. Then he sets the tablet aside gently, as if placing a newborn down to rest. The teacher speaks again, quieter this time. They write as if it matters, he says, because they do not yet know it doesn't. There is no bitterness in his voice, no cruelty, only weariness. The kind that comes from watching too many words crumble, too many names vanish, too many gods silenced by time. The scribe looks up at him just for a moment, and there is something like defiance in his eyes. Or maybe it's hope. The teacher meets his gaze, then nods once. That's enough. No more needs to be said. You leave the school slowly. The air outside feels brighter, sharper. The world moves quickly here, children shouting over games, women lifting baskets onto their backs, a drunk man arguing with a mule. But for a moment you stand still. Your hands still carry the scent of old clay. Your ears still echo with a line of prayer. O Enki, Lord of the Abyss. And you wonder how many gods have been written and unwritten, how many voices have spoken into clay, believing someone somewhere would listen. And if no one listened, did the gods die? Or did they simply fall asleep, waiting for a voice like that boy's to wake them again? A single wind lifts the dust at your feet, swirling it into the air like scattered ash. You watch it spin and vanish, and then slowly you walk on. The city is wide, and there are still many gods to remember. You follow the winding path past the temple steps into the garden hidden behind high stone walls. Few come here. It's not forbidden, only forgotten. The priests tend to the altars, the scribes to their tablets, the merchants to their scales. But no one tends the garden now save time itself. And time has a gentle hand. The first thing you notice is the stillness. It's not silence, not exactly. You can hear the flutter of birds high in the fig trees, the occasional buzz of insects, the creak of reeds swaying near the pool. But there is no human sound, no footsteps, no voices. Only the breath of nature, long and deep and slow, like an old god dreaming beneath the earth. The light here is soft, filtered through overgrown vines and cracked trellises. It spills in golden shafts onto worn stone paths, glinting off petals and fallen fruit. The scent is thick with jasmine and dust, sweet and dry at once. You step carefully, your feet brushing against tiny blossoms that bloom in places no one planted. And there, beneath a canopy of hanging date leaves, she walks, the priestess. She moves like someone who has no need to hurry. Barefoot, the hem of her linen robe damp from the morning dew. Her hair is gathered in coils wrapped in copper wire that catches the sunlight in bursts. She carries nothing. She speaks to no one. But her gaze is deep, steady, as if she sees something far beyond the garden walls. You do not call out to her. You only follow, from a distance. She pauses at a low altar half covered in creeping ivy. On it rests a small figurine, crude handmade, barely a foot tall. A woman with wide hips, a round face, and eyes that seem to watch everything. You recognize the shape. It is no temple idol. It is older, more personal, the kind of statue placed in kitchens and childbirth rooms, the kind of goddess whispered to in the dark. The priestess kneels. She does not speak. She only places her hand upon the altar, fingers splayed, palm pressed against the warm stone. The gesture is slow, reverent, and then she leans forward and rests her forehead there too, as if listening for something beneath the earth. A bird chirps, a leaf falls, and you realize she is not praying. She is remembering, a lover perhaps, a mother, a sister who did not return from the river, or maybe she is remembering a version of herself that once came here as a child, trailing behind another priestess long gone. You feel the weight of memory thick in the air, not yours, not hers, but the garden's. She rises again, walks on. At the edge of the pool she stops. The water is dark, nearly still. A few lily pads float across its surface, broken by a single ripple as a frog leaps silently from the bank. She kneels again, and this time she dips her fingers into the water, letting it run down her wrist, her elbow, her open palm. She draws a shape in the water, a curve, a spiral, a half-forgotten glyph. Then she cups the water and drinks, only once. And for a moment you believe she is not drinking water but memory itself. You step forward now, unable to remain still any longer. She does not turn. She does not startle, as if she knew you were there all along. When she speaks, her voice is soft, deeper than you expected. You walk like someone carrying names, she says. Are they yours? You don't answer. You're not sure. Not anymore. Perhaps they were. Perhaps they will be. She looks at you finally, and her eyes are rimmed with coal but filled with quiet fire. This place remembers, she says, even when we do not. She looks down at the pool again. Her reflection is broken by another ripple, this time caused by nothing you can see. She continues. There were gods here once, she says, not the ones with tall statues or big temples, the small ones, the quiet ones, the ones who waited in gardens. Her fingers trail the water again. She plucks a lily petal and places it on the surface. My mother prayed to a goddess with no name, she says. She lived in this pool, gave us fish during famine, took my sister in the flood. We brought her honey. We never carved her image. We never told the priests. You wait, unsure if she wants silence or reply. Then she turns away from the water, rising slowly to her feet. She's still here, she whispers. They all are. Every name you forget, every god you cast into dust. They don't die, they wait. She walks past you now, not quickly, not slowly, as if she's passing between worlds and yours is just one of them. You smell myrrh and crushed basil as she brushes by, and a faint bell-like chime follows in her wake, though you see no ornament on her. You turn to follow, but the garden shifts. The light has changed. The vines seem thicker. The air is still warm but heavier now. The path she walked is gone. Or maybe it never was. You are alone. Only the pool remains. You kneel where she knelt. You touch the water where she touched. It is cool, smooth. You cup it in your hand and bring it to your lips. It tastes like moss, like stone, like something far older than thirst. And when you look down, you see your own face, but not entirely. The shadows beneath your eyes are deeper. The line of your mouth is different. You look as someone might look 1,000 years from now, peering at your reflection in a broken mirror found in a ruin. You blink. The image fades. The birds are singing again. The wind returns. You rise. You step back into the narrow corridor that leads away from the garden, the walls warm beneath your fingers. And as you walk, the scent of jasmine lingers on your clothes like a memory not your own. Behind you the pool goes still once more. The dust rises before the drums do. At first you think it's just the wind, a shift in the dry air that kicks the earth upward in lazy spirals. But then you feel the ground respond, not with violence, not an earthquake, but a slow, deliberate pulse, as if the world itself were preparing to breathe. You follow the sound, drawn by something more than curiosity. The streets grow narrower, the walls higher. Children race past you with faces smudged in red paint, laughing as they vanish around a corner. A woman balances a basket of dyed cloth on her head, her eyes rimmed with blue coal, her steps matching the beat. The music builds, layered, ancient, familiar, and wild all at once. You emerge into the open and find yourself in the heart of the dust. The plaza is alive. Hundreds of people, maybe more, their bodies swaying in rhythm, their hands raised to a sky that offers no clouds, only fire. The sun hovers overhead like a great golden eye, unblinking, watching the storm below. And beneath it, the storm of humans, painted, masked, barefoot, cloaked. Some chant, some scream, some merely watch. And at the center of it all, rising on a wooden platform, is the statue. Tall, lean, carved from cedar, its arms outstretched, its face hidden beneath layers of ash and charcoal. A crown of jagged bronze encircles its head like lightning frozen in midair. Around its neck bells, around its wrists, red ribbons flutter in the wind. You know who this is, though no one dares speak the name aloud yet. Ishkur, the storm god, bringer of floods and thunder, lover of wind, destroyer of crops and protector of wild lands. He is worshipped not in whispers but in cries, not in temples but in chaos, and today is his. You step forward slowly, and the earth seems to shudder beneath each footfall. Not fearfully, joyfully, like a beast waking to the call of its master. Drums pound harder, feet stomp in reply, hands clap and clap and clap. A frenzy begins to rise like heat from the stones. The dancers arrive. They wear no shoes. No two look the same. One wears a headdress of feathers, another a cloak of woven grass. One is smeared in ochre, another in crushed charcoal, another in gold dust. They twirl and leap and throw themselves to the ground only to rise again in perfect time with the rhythm. Their movements are not beautiful. They are violent, strange, ecstatic, as if they are being danced rather than dancing. The crowd roars approval, children scream, old men bang staffs against stone, somewhere a goat bleats as if in panic or celebration. You find yourself breathing with the beat. Your pulse aligns with the drum. Your skin tingles with sweat and sun. You do not move, but you are moved. A woman beside you begins to weep, smiling through tears as she lifts her arms and spins slowly in place. A boy nearby stamps his feet so hard that blood blossoms beneath his heels. No one stops him. You are part of it now. And then the mask arrives. Carried by 4 figures in black veils held high on a wooden frame, the mask of Ishkur is not made to be worn. It is too large, too heavy. It is held above the statue's head like a crown made of fear. The face is exaggerated wide eyes, a snarl of a mouth, long tusks made from clay. The eyes are painted with lapis lazuli. The lips are streaked with something darker, dried wine, or perhaps blood. The 4 figures circle the statue, chanting words that do not belong to this world. The crowd quiets, not all at once but in waves, like a fire pulling back before it leaps. The silence is thicker than sound. A man steps forward from the platform's edge. You recognize him. He was a potter, or maybe a baker. Someone ordinary from the edge of the city, known but not important. Today, though, he wears a sash of gold and a crown of reeds. His eyes are distant, unfocused. His body shakes slightly, but he does not fall. He climbs the platform and kneels before the statue. One of the veiled attendants pours oil onto his shoulders. Another touches his forehead with the mask just barely. A third places a clay disc in his mouth. The 4th steps back and strikes a small gong. And then it begins. The man howls, not like a beast, not like a human, like something ancient that's never forgotten rage. He throws back his head and screams to the sky, his limbs convulsing, his mouth frothing. The drums resume wilder now. Dancers shriek. The crowd breaks apart and reforms, bodies colliding, laughing, sobbing, praising. The dust explodes into the air. The storm god has descended. You close your eyes. For a moment it's all inside you, the heat, the madness, the thunder that doesn't need clouds. You feel the press of thousands of feet stomping the earth in unison, the hunger of people who live at the mercy of wind and flood. This is not joy. This is not sorrow. It is surrender. The man with the mask falls forward onto the statue's feet. The platform shakes. 2 children rush up with bundles of reeds and begin tying them around his arms. Others come with offerings, flatbread, honeybeads, feathers, ashes from a fire that burned all night. The storm god does not respond. He does not need to. His answer is already in the dust and sweat and drum beats. You step back slowly, unwillingly. The heat clings to your skin. The smell of burning herbs fills your lungs. Your ears ring with echoes you'll carry into sleep. And as you turn down a side street, the sound of the festival fades behind you, not like music ending, but like a river bending out of sight. The god remains. And the dust keeps rising. The further you walk from the storm god's festival, the quieter the city becomes. It's as if the gods take turns, one thundering into the plaza with drums and dust the next, slipping softly into back alleys and kitchens where prayers are whispered into jars of oil and folded into bread. Here in this small courtyard, shaded by hanging flax and a leaning fig tree, you find the goddess of grain waiting in silence. Not in person, not in statue, but in gesture. A woman kneels on the packed earth, her dress stained with flour, her face lined by years and sun. She hums as she works, not a song, but a rhythm matching the motion of her hands as she presses dough into shape. Around her, 3 children sit cross-legged, their eyes fixed on the offering she prepares. They do not speak, they know better. Behind them, leaning against the mud brick wall, stands a man whose clothes hang loose on his frame. His eyes are hollow, his lips dry. He watches the bread not with hunger, but with reverence, as if it might save them, as if it might answer a question they've been asking with their empty bowls for weeks. The courtyard smells of earth and ash and something faintly sweet, date syrup perhaps. A pot simmers nearby, sending up lazy spirals of steam, and a hen clucks softly in the corner, pecking at nothing. It is not a sacred place, and yet it is. The woman lifts a small clay image from beside her, a simple thing, barely more than a rounded figure with etched breasts and curved hips. She presses it gently into the soft dough, leaving its imprint. The children lean closer, wide-eyed. "This is for Ashnan," she murmurs, her voice barely above a breath. The children nod. "You've heard the name before. Ashnan, the goddess of grain of barley and bread, sister to the beer god once so powerful that kings offered gold for her favor. She has no grand temples now, no processions, no masks or drums. But here, in the hands of the poor, she survives." The woman finishes shaping the loaves. Small, round, marked with a spiral pattern and the touch of the goddess. She sets them on a flat stone to rise, then sprinkles a pinch of flour over each and bows her head. The man steps forward, carrying a small bowl of honey water. He pours a few drops onto each loaf, then touches the earth with 2 fingers, then his forehead. His movements are shaky but deliberate. The ritual is old, older than language perhaps, and older than suffering. A wind stirs the courtyard. Dry leaves flutter across the ground. One child reaches for a fallen date, picks it up, wipes it against her tunic and slips it into her mouth. The others watch without complaint. The woman stands now. She looks up not at the sky but toward the roof where a string of dried herbs hangs like forgotten prayers. Her face is unreadable, strong, tired, unbending. "She gave us one more harvest," she says to no one in particular. The man replies with a nod, nothing more. You step closer, drawn by something quiet inside you, a hunger not for food, but for understanding. The woman glances at you, and her gaze softens. She sees you, not as a stranger, but as another face in the endless line of those who have watched, waited, prayed, and baked. "She doesn't need statues," she says, "only hands." She walks toward the hearth, tending to the pot, adding a pinch of salt and stirring with the end of a reed stalk. The children move closer to the bread, watching as it begins to rise under the touch of morning heat. The man lowers himself to the ground slowly, his knees creaking, his fingers pressed together. The silence here is deep but never empty. A bird sings from the fig tree. Somewhere beyond the wall a cart rumbles past. The world continues, loud, chaotic, unpredictable, but here time rests. The offering is simple, but not small. It carries within it stories of famine, of survival, of patience, of women who prayed not for glory, but for enough flour to last until morning. One child begins to hum the same rhythm the mother used earlier. The melody circles the courtyard like smoke, rising and fading and returning again. You listen, and you realize it's not a song of praise. It's a lullaby, a promise. The goddess of grain does not demand sacrifice, only faith, only the willingness to shape something from almost nothing, to knead and press and wait, knowing the miracle is not in thunder, but in rising dough. The bread is nearly ready now. The woman lifts the first loaf and carries it to the altar in the corner, a flat stone beneath the fig tree marked by burn rings and scraps of ash. She sets the loaf there, then pours the last of the honey water beside it. She whispers a few words too soft to hear and steps back. The other loaves will be eaten, but one is always given. You step away from the courtyard slowly, quietly, not wanting to break the spell. Your feet carry you down the alley, the scent of bread clinging to your clothes, your mind filled with flour and gods and warmth. You glance back once just before turning the corner. The children are now seated in a circle. The woman breaks a loaf and gives each one a piece. They eat with reverence, not because it's sacred, but because it's enough. Night comes quietly to the city of Lagash. Not suddenly, not with fanfare or sweeping change, just the slow dimming of the day, as if someone draws a curtain made of ash and indigo across the sky. The sun's last rays catch on the corners of rooftops and the tips of statues, making them glow briefly, before the dark claims them all. Lamps are lit, doors are shut, voices fall to whispers. The streets once alive with barter and song now lie still. And yet the city does not sleep. You walk beneath the shadow of a collapsed archway, its bricks softened by moss and years. A thin crescent moon hangs above like a sliver of bone, and the stars blink into place one by one, tentative at first, then bold. You pass by a wall where someone has painted a figure, a bull-headed god, or perhaps a man in mask. The paint has faded, but the eyes remain sharp, staring into the dark like sentries of forgotten dreams. The air is cooler now, carrying the scent of burning oil-wet stone, and something faintly metallic, old blood or bronze, you can't tell. The soundscape has changed too. No more drums, no laughter, only the occasional creak of wood, a cough behind a shutter, the shuffle of someone walking just out of sight. And above it all, the dreams begin to stir. You feel it first as a hush inside your own chest, a pulling inward like gravity, but softer. The kind that doesn't drag your body but your mind. You pass a narrow window with a curtain fluttering. Inside, a child tosses in sleep. Beside him, an old woman sits upright, eyes open, mouth moving in silence. Her lips form names. They drift out with the breeze. Names of gods, ancestors, fears you don't know, but the air thickens with them. You keep walking. Lagash at night is not a city. It is a vessel, a container for secrets too delicate for daylight, and you are not a visitor now. You are a dreamer among dreamers. At the edge of a small square you see the dream scribe. That is not his title. No one calls him that. But you've seen him before, always after sunset, always with a bundle of clay tablets slung across his back, a stylus tucked behind one ear. He walks barefoot, muttering to himself, pausing every few steps to kneel and press his fingers to the dirt. Then he writes, not on paper, not in books, on scraps of clay, some still damp, others already cracking. He records dreams, not his own, others. He gathers them like fruit. He asks no permission. He listens through walls. He watches people as they sleep, sometimes humming, sometimes laughing softly. No one stops him. Children leave bits of soft clay for him near their doors in case he needs more. Old women whisper their dreams into cups of water, then pour them out for him to find. Tonight he kneels beneath a fig tree. You approach slowly, careful not to step on the sleeping cat nearby. He doesn't look up. His fingers move with care, pressing symbols into the surface of a curved tile, once part of a roof, now reborn as a tablet. You recognize a few signs: flight, shadow, river of teeth. The rest is a blur. When he speaks, his voice is thin and strange, like someone who spends more time with ghosts than with the living. She dreamed of fireflies, he says, but they had no light, only eyes. Dozens of eyes watching her from the reeds. He stops writing, and then she floated. You don't ask who she is. You don't ask how he knows. You just watch as he finishes the tablet, sets it beside another, and begins the next. His movements are slow, ritualistic, as though he's not merely documenting, but preserving something fragile, something that might vanish if not witnessed. Far above, the moon climbs higher, and the dreams grow bolder. You hear them now, soft cries, murmurs, chants not sung by any waking voice. Behind shuttered doors, people shift. Some reach for amulets beneath pillows. Others turn toward the wall, trying to escape the weight of their own minds. But there is no escape. The gods of night are not cruel, only curious. A girl walks past you, barefoot, holding a clay bird painted blue. Her eyes are closed, sleepwalking. She hums a lullaby no one taught her. The bird's wings are chipped, but she cradles it like a newborn. The scribe does not record her dream, not yet. He waits. You walk on. A priest stands on a rooftop, arms raised. He says nothing. His shadow stretches across the alley below like the blade of a dagger. A dog sits beside him, unmoving, eyes glowing gold in the firelight. The scent of incense curls down the walls like smoke made of memory. You pass a man lying in the street, mumbling. He repeats a single phrase in an old dialect, "Do not let the wings touch me." His eyes are wide open. But he's not here. And suddenly you feel the presence of something else. Not a person, not a ghost. A sensation as if someone very old were watching, not from the corners but from the cracks. From beneath the bricks. From inside the wells. The gods of dreams. The ones without names. The ones who do not need temples or prayers, only sleep. You stop beneath an archway. Close your eyes. And there it is, the dream. Not yours. Not entirely. But offered to you just this once. A temple of glass that sings when you breathe. A field of teeth growing from the soil like wheat. A boy with a bird's head telling you to run before the sand reaches your ankles. You feel it. You don't understand it. You remember it anyway. You open your eyes. The city is unchanged. The stones beneath your feet are still cracked. The cat still sleeps. The fig tree still leans. But you are different now. And the scribe, still writing by lamplight, smiles once without looking. They remember you, he says, even when you forget them. You walk on. The dreams continue. You walk beyond the city walls where the moonlight spreads wider. There is no firelight here. No voices. Only the open steppe, endless and dark, stretched like black silk across the earth. The grasses rise and fall in soft waves beneath the wind, whispering secrets to one another in a language too ancient to be written. Above, stars flicker like the eyes of forgotten beasts watching from beyond the dome of sky. Somewhere in this darkness a shepherd hums. You follow the sound. It carries over the plains in a low, rhythmic chant, half song, half prayer. You step carefully through tufts of grass and patches of stone, your sandals damp with dew. The air is cold but not cruel. It wraps around you like a quiet warning. You are no longer among walls, no longer protected by the weight of brick and ritual. Here only the gods of sky and distance remain. You find him by the fire. The shepherd is young, no more than 20, but his face is carved by wind and silence. His cloak is rough wool, patched and threadbare. He sits cross-legged, a curved horn by his side, and a sleeping lamb curled in his lap. The fire crackles softly. Behind him a small herd of sheep glows white in the starlight, their bodies huddled close, their breath rising like mist. He does not startle when he sees you. He only lifts a hand in greeting and gestures toward the ground beside him. You sit. The warmth of the fire seeps into your bones. Sparks drift upward like tiny souls vanishing into the sky. You hear no insects, no howls, only the soft sound of chewing, the shuffle of hooves, and the shepherd's voice as he speaks slowly as if the words are borrowed from someone else. "She walks tonight," he says. You glance toward the horizon. Who? He doesn't answer right away. He pulls a piece of dried fig from his satchel, breaks it in half, offers you one. The sweetness lingers on your tongue as he finally responds. "The moon goddess," he says. "Nana's daughter. You remember now the old stories. Nana the moon god ruled the night skies from his silver bark, charting the heavens while mortals dreamed. But it was his daughter Ningal who walked the earth soft-footed, veiled in mist, listening to the prayers of shepherds and lonely wives. Some said she could turn wolves away with a glance. Others claimed she spoke to stones and taught them patience. She walks with bare feet," the shepherd continues, "so the earth will remember her weight." You both sit in silence for a while. The wind shifts. A cloud passes over the moon, and for a moment everything dims. The fire crackles louder. The lamb stirs in its sleep. You think you see a figure moving across the distant ridge, tall, slow, draped in silver, but when you blink, she is gone. Or maybe never there. The shepherd doesn't react. He is staring into the flames now, as if reading something in their dance. "I saw her once," he says. "When I was a child. My father took me to the hills to count the lambs. I wandered away. There was a pool there in the hollow of a rock, and she was kneeling beside it." His voice is steady but softer now. "She sang to it. Not words, just sound. Like water turned into voice. I watched her for a long time. She never looked at me, but the pool reflected her face. And it wasn't kind, it was sad." He falls quiet. The fire burns lower. You watch the coals glow, pulsing red, soft and alive, like the heart of something ancient and tired. A shooting star cuts across the sky. You don't make a wish. You only breathe. The shepherd's horn catches the moonlight. He picks it up now, wipes it against his sleeve, then brings it to his lips. The sound that comes is low and long, not loud but full. It rolls across the steppe like a wave, startling the sheep, stirring the wind. You feel it in your chest before you hear it with your ears. And when it fades, you realize what it was. A call. Not for help, not for danger, just presence, a reminder. "I am here." The shepherd lowers the horn. She doesn't answer, he says. Not always, but she listens. You glance again at the hills. This time you see nothing. No silver, no veil. Only the slow dance of grass and shadow. But in the stillness, you feel something new, not fear, not wonder, but tenderness. A gentleness too large to carry, the kind that only gods or mothers can hold. The lamb wakes, nuzzles the shepherd's arm. He strokes it absently, his eyes distant again. She remembers everyone he says, even the ones who forget her, even the ones who curse the moon when their crops fail or their lovers leave. He smiles just a little. She remembers anyway. The fire dims further. You know it will go out soon, and when it does, the stars will reclaim the sky completely. But for now you sit in warmth and shadow, a guest in a quiet vigil shared by shepherds and gods. The sheep shift. The wind hums. A faint echo rises from the hills, not a voice, not quite, just a hush, a breath, the weight of invisible footsteps pressing gently into the grass. And you understand. She walks still, not to rule, but to listen. And the earth, the sky, the fire all listen back. A fog hangs low over the marshes, not the kind that chills your skin or blinds your eyes. This one moves like breath. Warm, damp, alive. It clings to reeds and riverbanks, sways with the rhythm of the tide, carries the scent of wet earth and rotting lilies. You step carefully between slick stones and coiled roots, your feet sinking slightly into the mud, the squelch muffled by the stillness around you. It is too quiet. No birds call, no frogs croak, even the insects have hushed. You're not alone. You don't know how you know, but you do. The way a deer knows it's being watched. The way a child knows when a dream isn't quite done. There's a presence here older than stone, lighter than shadow. You move slower now, breath-shallow eyes alert to the shifting mists, and then you hear it. A splash, soft, distant, but unmistakable. You turn. The marsh parts ahead, revealing a pool black as oil, still as obsidian. The water reflects nothing. Not sky, not you, just itself. A place where things vanish. You step closer. At the edge of the pool lies a shoe, small, worn, wrapped in reeds, as if someone had tried to hide it or preserve it or offer it. Beside it, a doll carved from clay and wrapped in faded fabric, one eye painted in with care, the other chipped away. The kind of toy made in haste, or love, or both. A child was here recently. Your heart quickens. You call out, not with your voice but with your mind. A reaching silent primal search. No answer, only fog. But their footprints, bare, small, leading into the marsh. The water has not swallowed them yet. You follow carefully, your breath loud in your ears. Each step takes you deeper, not just into the wetland, but into something else. A memory not your own. A fear not your own. And then the singing. High, fragile, barely a thread of sound. A lullaby. You freeze. It's coming from somewhere beyond the reeds, where the mist thickens and the land gives way to water entirely. The melody is familiar, but not because you've heard it before, because it's been waiting in the corners of human sleep for centuries. A song sung to keep something near. Or away. You move closer. The reeds part like fingers. There she stands, a little girl, maybe 7, maybe younger. Her hair is soaked and tangled, plastered to her cheeks. Her dress clings to her skin, the hem dark with silt. She hums to herself as she sways slightly, looking down into the water, hands clasped before her. She does not notice you. Or maybe she does, but doesn't care. You try to speak, but your voice fails. There's something in the air, thick, charged, like the moment before lightning. You take another step. The girl lifts her head slowly, and you see her eyes. They are too still, too calm, like she's been waiting here a very long time. I was looking for my sister, she says. Her voice is quiet, flat, like water poured from a broken bowl. She walked into the marsh and didn't come back, so I followed. She looks back down at the pool, but I forgot the way out. You want to ask how long she's been here. But the reeds rustle behind you. You turn. A figure. Not large, not fast, but there, moving between the trees just outside your vision. Another child. A woman. The fog distorts everything. Shapes twist. Sounds stretch. The lullaby continues, now coming from everywhere and nowhere. The girl steps into the water. You lunge forward, but your feet won't move. The mud grips your ankles. The air thickens. The world slows. She walks until the water reaches her knees, then her waist. Then she stops. It's where they live now, she says. The ones no one remembers. Her voice is different now. Older. She turns to you once more. They need names to stay, but no one says them anymore. Then she smiles just slightly. You did. And she vanishes beneath the surface. No splash, just silence. The water closes over her like breath being held. You fall to your knees. The fog swirls. You call out finally aloud. Her name, you don't know it, but you call something, anything, into the night. Nothing returns. Then a ripple. From the center of the pool, something rises. Not the girl. Not a god. Not exactly. A shape, round, slow, ancient, lifts just above the waterline. A face, a mask you can't tell. It is made of clay and time, with markings etched so faint they seem like veins. 2 holes where eyes should be. No mouth. Just stillness. It floats there, watching, waiting. You know what it is. A forgotten god. Not of war, not of storm, not even of dreams. This one is the keeper of what is lost. Children, names, footsteps, voices. You bow your head without meaning to. And for a moment you feel it, not fear, not sorrow, but gravity. A pulling down. Into the past. Into memory. Into mud. The god does not speak. It does not need to. Its presence is language. It exists because it is needed, because something must hold what we forget. You close your eyes. When you open them, the pool is empty. The shoe is gone. The doll is gone. The footprints erased. Only the fog remains. You stumble back onto the path, heart-heavy, hands trembling. The air is lighter now. Birds begin to chirp again. The night reclaims its rhythm. You walk, slowly, silently. Behind you the marsh settles, but the weight of a name unspoken lingers in your chest like mist. The river has overflowed, not in fury, not in violence. It spills across the low banks with the calm insistence of something older than kings, older than maps, older even than memory. The water moves slow and wide, gleaming under the pale light of dawn, swallowing fields, footpaths, and the lower stones of homes pressed too near the edge. You stand at the threshold of the flood where the dry earth ends and the drowned world begins. All around you people gather, not in panic, not yet, but in stillness, the kind of quiet that comes when the mind cannot decide whether to grieve or wait. Children cling to their mothers. Men clutch clay tablets wrapped in oilskin. One old woman holds a jar of grain high above her head as if the river might respect her gesture. It doesn't. The water keeps rising. A boy wades out thigh-deep to retrieve a goat that bleats helplessly from a patch of high ground. The current is stronger than it looks. He stumbles once, twice. A man shouts for him to return, but the boy does not. His hand is on the goat's horn now. The animal kicks. They both tumble. The crowd gasps. You step forward. So does someone else. A priest younger than you expect, his robe hitched up to his knees, his chest bare, his eyes lined in ash. He does not hesitate. He plunges into the river without a word. His strokes are smooth, practiced. He reaches the boy. The goat lifts them both with a strength that seems too great for his frame. They return coughing, shivering, but safe. No one claps. No one cheers. This is not a moment of triumph. It is only the first rescue in what will become many. The flood has arrived, and with it the need for gods. The priest drops to his knees and touches the earth. His hands move with the precision of ritual, 2 fingers to the water, then to his lips, then to the stone at his side. He draws a symbol there, a swirl with 3 lines through it, the mark of a water deity. Not Enki, not the great river god. This is one of the minor ones, the local ones, the ones whose names are etched only into wet stone and the underside of boats. He begins to chant. Not loudly, not for show, a true chant meant for listening, not hearing. Others join him. One by one, kneeling at the edge of the flood, their voices weaving together like reeds in a basket. You do not understand the words. They are old. Perhaps not even words anymore, but syllables worn smooth by centuries of repetition. Still, they hold weight. You feel it in your throat, a tightness, a memory. You kneel too. The water inches closer. It laps against your toes, warm and thick with silt. You can smell the river now, not fresh, but heavy with decay, with life, with the breath of fish and mud and all things that crawl and slither beneath the surface. Someone brings a torch. It is planted in the ground near the chanting priest, its flame small but defiant in the gray morning. A second follows, then a third. The firelight dances on the water, casting writhing shadows across the ripples. It almost looks like the river is alive. And maybe it is. A child places a bowl of lentils at the water's edge. Another brings wine. A woman unclasps a necklace from her neck, a simple bead, blue and cracked, and sets it gently onto the wet stone. The offerings begin. You reach into your satchel fingers, brushing against the smooth shell you found days ago. You hadn't known why you kept it. Now you do. You place it beside the others, and in that moment, something inside you releases, like breath held too long. The river accepts, not with words, but with stillness. The chanting fades. The priest rises. His robes are soaked, his hair clings to his skin, but his face is calm. He speaks for the first time not to the crowd, but to the river. We remember. That's all. The people disperse, quietly. They return to their homes or what remains of them. They carry children, pots, rope, memory. No one complains. No one curses. This is not the first flood. It will not be the last. But today they remembered. That is enough. You remain behind for a while. The water kisses the soles of your feet. You watch as the torchlight flickers. The offerings glint beneath the surface. The necklace is gone now, pulled under or accepted. The shell remains. So do the lentils. And above you the sky begins to clear. A pale shaft of sunlight pierces through the clouds, touching the river's edge with gold. It lingers for just a breath, then vanishes again. But you saw it. And so did the priest. He meets your gaze, then nods once, a simple acknowledgement of your presence, of the moment, of something shared, however briefly. You turn to leave. The path is slick. The city waits behind you, weary, wet, still breathing. Children run ahead, chasing each other through puddles. Someone laughs, a real laugh, light, free. The sound of defiance against despair. And behind you the river continues to rise, but slower now, as if calmed. not defeated, but heard. The council gathers beneath the temple roof as the morning thickens into haze. The room is vast but not grand. No gold, no polished marble. Only carved stone columns wrapped in faded cloth incense pots smoking in the corners, and benches worn smooth by generations of worry. Light filters through high slats, falling in shafts like divine judgment. Dust dances in the beams, catching on breath, on movement, on silence. You stand near the back, not part of the council but permitted to watch. The air here is heavy, not with heat but with expectation. The kind of pressure that builds when too many old men gather and try to make sense of something that refuses to be understood. An omen has arrived. That much you know. It came not in dreams but in birds, or rather the absence of them. For 3 mornings no doves circled the shrine. For 2 nights the owls cried from the wrong direction. And just before dawn today, the high priest's shadow pointed east while the sun rose behind him. These are not stories, these are facts in this world. And facts, when strange enough, become signs. The council consists of 12, 6 priests, 3 scribes, 2 elders chosen by the merchant clans, and 1 woman, the oracle keeper, her face veiled in dyed wool, her silence more commanding than any man's speech. They sit in a half-circle, their gazes fixed on the center, where a tray of cracked bone fragments and burnt grain has been laid for interpretation. The priest of Enlil speaks first. His voice is steady, dry, like parchment rubbed between fingers. He recounts the pattern of winds over the past 7 days, the irregular flooding of the southern canal, and the troubling behavior of the temple dogs, one of which gave birth to a litter of 6, all stillborn. He concludes with a single sentence: "The gods are displeased." No one disagrees. The next to speak is a scribe, his robe stained with ink, his fingers twitching even in stillness. He reads from a tablet found buried beneath the floor of the temple's western wall, not by accident, but by instinct, he says. The tablet is cracked, but the words legible. "When the birds are silent and the dust rises without feet, turn your ear to the west, for it shall carry voices not your own." He pauses. "It is the old tongue. From the time of Lugal Mesa, we believe it refers to this." Another scribe nods. The elders shift. They are less comfortable with symbols. They speak of grain stores, of trade routes delayed by the floods, of caravan leaders who whisper about bad luck and consider detours to rival cities. They do not say the word curse, but they do not need to. It hangs between their words like smoke. Finally, the oracle keeper raises her hand. The room stills. She stands, slowly. Her movements are deliberate, as if sculpted from ritual itself. Her veil brushes the floor. Her bare feet make no sound on the stone. She walks to the center of the circle and kneels beside the tray of burnt grain and cracked bones. She does not speak. Not yet. She lifts a piece of bone between her fingers, holds it to the light, turns it, examines a jagged fracture along the edge. Then she lifts a handful of the grain, lets it fall between her fingers, slow as sand. It makes no sound as it hits the stone. And then softly she hums. 1 note, low, sustained, ancient. It rises in pitch, and then breaks. She speaks. They are not angry. The priests frown. The elders lean forward. The oracle keeper continues. They are afraid. A silence deeper than any yet descends. Fear is not a word the gods wear easily. They do not know what comes, she says. Only that something moves beyond the veil of this world, something without offering, without altar, without name. The high priest of Enlil stiffens. That is not possible, he says. The gods know all. The oracle keeper's voice does not rise. But they are not all. She lowers her hand into the tray again, draws a curved symbol in the ash, a crescent with a line through it. It is not a sign used often. One of the scribes gasps. It is the mark of the before. The room breathes as one. The before, the age before the first temples, before the gods, took shape, before writing, before kings, before even stories. It is said that during the before, gods were not worshipped but feared, not named but sensed. Their presence in wind, in shadow, in silence. The oracle keeper speaks again. We must prepare. How the high priest asks, the edge in his voice now sharp with unease. But she does not answer. She returns to her seat, and the room falls into confusion. Some argue. Some begin to pray. One elder stands and paces, muttering about salt lines and ancestral pacts. A young priest sketches protective signs in the dust with the tip of his sandal. The scribes begin to write. Fast, feverish, as if to trap the moment before it slips away. You remain still, watching the ash symbol on the floor. The mark of the before. It does not fade. Not yet. Outside, a breeze begins to blow from the west. Warm. Too warm. It carries no scent, no sound. Just the weight of something arriving. He dreams of doors. The king, draped in linen so fine it ripples like water, lies on a bed of cedar and ivory. But he does not rest. His eyes twitch behind closed lids. His fingers curl into fists. Sweat beads at his temples despite the cool oils rubbed into his skin. Around him servants move silently barefoot on polished stone, careful not to disturb the breathing body of power. But he is already elsewhere. In the dream he walks alone through a corridor carved from night. It has no walls, only shadow pressed into shapes his mind can't hold. The floor is cool beneath his feet, and every step he takes echoes as if it were the first ever made. Ahead a door, then another, and another. Hundreds, each one carved with symbols he knows but cannot read. Behind him something follows. Not with footsteps, but with presence. It does not threaten. It remembers. He passes a door with a bull etched into the frame. Another, with a tree, its roots shaped like hands. Another, marked only by a cracked circle, the mark of the before. He pauses there. His fingers reach for the handle. Then a voice. "You are not yet dead." He turns. No one is there, but the corridor ripples as if exhaling. And he wakes. The king sits upright in the pre-dawn light, heart pounding. His chamber is vast, gilded, hung with cloth from distant lands, and guarded by men who do not speak. A scribe kneels beside him, already stylus and hand-wax tablet ready. The dream must be recorded. But the king does not speak. Not yet. He rises barefoot, walking across the cool stone floor to the window. Outside, the city stretches into fog towers and ziggurats, market stalls covered in cloth alleys still asleep. Far off he can see the river glinting like a knife. Beyond that, nothing. Only dust. He speaks without turning. "There were doors." The scribe nods, inscribing the phrase with careful reverence. The king continues. "One was waiting for me, and the others, they were watching." The scribe pauses but writes it down. The dream journals of kings are sacred. They are read only by the high priest, then sealed in clay and buried beneath the temple floor. Not prophecy, not exactly, but warnings, or riddles, or perhaps just the way gods talk to those too close to thrones. The king turns back. "I saw the mark of the before." The stylus stills. That symbol has surfaced 3 times this season. Once in bone, once in fire, now in sleep. The scribe bows and leaves without a word, tablet clutched to his chest like a newborn. By midday the king is dressed in the full regalia of his office. Lapis earrings, rings on every finger, a cloak dyed purple and gold, the scepter of kingship shaped like a lion's tooth. But his eyes remain clouded, his voice quieter than usual. He listens as advisors speak of border disputes, of canal maintenance, of theft in the grain stores. He nods. He replies. He signs edicts. But his mind is elsewhere. He dreams still, even with his eyes open. At one point, a court poet begins a recitation, a long-winded tale of a hunter who outran the wind, dedicated to Inanna in celebration of the king's wisdom. But the king stops him. What happens when the wind turns around? The poet falters. The king leans forward. Who hunts the hunter when the gods are silent? The court freezes. No one answers. Later, in the privacy of his study, the king orders a clay figure to be made, a door plane with a broken circle at its center. It is to be placed in the temple courtyard, buried beneath the altar of Enki, and never spoken of again. "But why, my lord?" the sculptor asks. The king's reply is simple. "So it will remember me when I forget." That night the dream returns. This time the corridor has no end, only doors. He opens one. Inside, a child with no eyes sings in a voice that echoes backward. He opens another. A woman, ancient and veiled, weaves hair into a net while the stars fall outside her window. He opens a third. A city underwater, lit by lamps that float and flicker and never go out. And still he walks. Behind him the presence. Closer now. It does not chase. It waits. As he reaches for a 4th door, the one with the bull again, he hears the voice once more. "You are almost remembered." He wakes, gasping. His chamber is dark. The air is heavy. A servant rushes in with a damp cloth, pressing it to his forehead, whispering prayers. Another brings wine. Another lights oil at the foot of the bed to chase away whatever spirits may have followed him back. But none of it touches the dream. It stays inside him, lodged, breathing. The next morning the king issues a decree. All temples are to be scrubbed, all statues to be reanointed, all forgotten gods, the minor, the unnamed. The old household spirits are to be offered bread oil and song. 3 days of silence will follow. No court, no trade, only remembering. The priests obey. Some are puzzled, some uneasy, but none refuse. On the 3rd night the king walks alone into the temple of Enki. No guards, no servants, only him. He kneels at the altar, places both hands on the stone, whispers something only the bricks will hear, and behind him, though no one sees, a door opens. Not in the wall, not in the temple, in the air. In the moment, it opens, just enough, and a shadow steps through. Not to claim, not to conquer, only to listen. For even the gods forget sometimes, and even kings dream of being known. The sun is high now, and heat clings to everything. You follow the sound of footsteps on dry stone. Not rushed, not purposeful, just steady as if their owner had been walking for a very long time. The rhythm draws you toward the edge of the market quarter, past shuttered shops and faded murals, where the wind carries the scent of old resin and dried fish. There, beneath a cracked awning strung with bells that no longer ring, a man stands with a stringed instrument slung over his back. His robe is frayed, his sandals uneven. His hair is silver braided into loops that speak of a tribe not seen in this city for generations. But what gives him away is the scroll, worn, patched, bound with leather, resting at his hip like a sword. He is a singer of tales, a wanderer, a memory keeper. He doesn't call for an audience. He doesn't need to. A few curious children gather near him. A merchant woman, wiping sweat from her brow, pauses in her doorway. An old man with cloudy eyes turns his stool to face the sun. The singer speaks, not loudly, not softly, just enough. They were gods once, he says, like fire, like breath, like the silence between thunder and rain. He plucks a note from his lyre, low, resonant, the sound of something beginning. They had names, he continues, but we forgot them. So they changed, became birds, beasts, stones. They slipped into dreams, into illness, into luck and its absence. Another note, higher this time, a ripple across a dry pond. In the time before kings, he says, there was a goddess of cracked walls. Her temple was a ruin, even when the world was new. People prayed to her not for protection but for warning. If her name burned your tongue, you would live. He smiles crookedly. No one speaks her name now. The children lean in. You do too. The storm god had a brother, he says. Not of thunder, but of silence after lightning. He ruled shadows that moved in corners. He fed on unspoken thoughts. His shrine was a single black stone. His priests had no tongues. A pause. A breath. He was never angry, only lonely. The wind rises. Dust spins in lazy circles. The singer strums again, and the sound hangs in the heat like incense. Once in the city of Kesh, he says, they buried a god alive, not in punishment, in reverence. He asked for it, said he was tired of being prayed to without being heard. So they dug a hole and lowered his statue in, singing all the while. When they covered it with earth, the birds stopped singing for 7 days. He looks at the sky. They never returned to Kesh. No one speaks. Even the bells above him sway in silence. You feel something old stirring behind your ribs, not sorrow, not reverence, but recognition. As if the stories are not being told but remembered. As if you already knew them long before they were spoken aloud. The singer shifts. And what of the goddess of hinges, he says, the one who waited at every doorway deciding which guests brought blessing and which brought knives? She had no temples, only thresholds. Women would leave salt in the corners of their homes to keep her smiling. He closes his eyes. She smiles no more. One of the children whispers, "Where did they go?" The singer opens his eyes. "They didn't go," he says. "We did." You feel the truth in it. The gods didn't disappear. They were left behind, not banished but abandoned. Fated not by time but by forgetting. He lifts the lyre again and begins to sing. The melody is haunting, circular, rising and falling like breath in a sleeping chest. The words are in a tongue you don't know, yet you understand them. They speak of hills that remember footsteps, of wells that whisper secrets to those who draw water alone, of gods who wait not for worship but for witness. The song ends. The children say nothing. The merchant woman wipes her eyes and pretends it's the dust. The old man nods once, then turns away, muttering a prayer that hasn't been spoken in years. The singer packs his scroll, slings his lyre over his shoulder, and begins to walk again. No applause, no farewell, just a pair of footprints pressed into the hot stone, slowly fading in the sun. You follow for a moment, not with your feet, with your thoughts. You wonder how many stories were never written, only sung lost as soon as the wind rose. How many gods had no temples, only moments. A glance, a breath, a kindness given without reason. You wonder how many are still waiting in courtyards, in kitchens, in alleyways, beneath statues worn blank. You look up. A pigeon sits atop the temple wall, head cocked to one side, watching you. For a brief second you think it might speak, but it does not. It only flies away, and you are left with the echo of a song you never learned, playing softly inside your chest. There is no ceremony. No bells, no chants, no torch-lit procession. Only the quiet scraping of earth as a pair of men dig a hole behind the old granary. It's just wide enough for a wooden crate, just deep enough that it won't be found easily. The soil is dry, resisting each thrust of the shovel, as if even the ground hesitates to receive what's being buried. You watch from the shade of a low wall, unseen, unnoticed. The men don't speak. They've done this before. Their robes are plain, their eyes dull with the kind of obedience born not from faith but from exhaustion. The crate between them is wrapped in linen. There is no marking, no inscription, no symbol of what it holds. But it's a god, or rather what's left of one. Not a being of lightning or stars, not a ruler of war or sky, something smaller, local, a god of morning windows perhaps, of water jugs that never cracked, of safe return from long walks, a god with no worshippers left whose name has been erased from walls and forgotten by mothers. They place the crate in the hole with care, not reverence, just precision, like setting down a fragile jar no one wants to break but no one wishes to keep. The younger of the two hesitates before covering it. He looks around as if searching for a reason, or for someone to stop him. Then he sighs and lifts a handful of dirt. Lets it fall, soft, steady, like sand into an hourglass. It takes them less than an hour. By the end, the ground looks undisturbed. A patch of dry earth among thousands. One of the men draws a small mark in the dust, 3 lines intersecting at a crooked angle. It's not a holy sign. It's a signal. For others like them. A quiet message, here lies memory. Then they leave. Their sandals scuff against the stones. Their shadows vanish around a corner. You remain behind. The air is hot and unmoving. You kneel at the edge of the patch and press your hand to the dirt. It's warm, dry, still breathing. You close your eyes and listen, not with your ears but with something deeper. At first silence, then a flicker, like a whisper caught in the folds of a forgotten room. Not words, just presence. You imagine what lies beneath a small statue perhaps, or a bundle of charms tied with old reed, maybe a worn piece of cloth once dyed in sacred color now faded to ash. The body of a god is not flesh or gold. It is belief. When that fades, the bones remain. And bones are always buried. You walk through the city differently now. Every corner feels sacred. Every cracked tile could be an altar. Every drain could be a shrine. The pigeons on the roof coo in a rhythm that sounds suspiciously like prayer. You begin to see the invisible, the traces left by things no one notices. A smear of ochre beneath a market stall. A stone smoothed flat in an alley where someone once knelt every morning. A name carved into the base of a lampstand worn down to a single letter. You wonder how many gods were made not by temples but by habits. By routine kindnesses. By the way, one person touched another's arm during grief. Not all divinity was declared. Some was simply lived. A few days later, a girl finds the mark. She is no more than 12. She squats beside the patch of earth behind the granary eyes, narrowed fingers tracing the symbol. She doesn't call for help. She doesn't dig. She just sits there thinking. You watch her. She returns the next day. And the next. Each time she brings something, a seed, a smooth pebble, a feather. She leaves them quietly, arranges them in a careful circle, then walks away. On the 4th day, she brings a bowl of water. She pours it slowly onto the dirt, cupping her hand to direct the flow. The earth darkens, breathes. You say nothing. You do not ask her why. She would not know how to answer. It is not about knowing. It is about remembering. That night you dream of the buried god, but not as a statue, as a wind, a breeze that smells of rain before it falls. It passes through streets, through shutters, through lungs. It rustles old curtains. It shakes dust from forgotten jars. It sings in tones no one taught, no one hears, not with the ears. You follow the wind. It leads you back to the patch of earth, but now it glows, faintly, soft pulses of light rising from the ground like fireflies born from sleep. The girl is there sitting cross-legged, eyes closed. Beside her the feather rises, floats, hovers for a moment, then drifts downward, turning once in the air before it rests again. She opens her eyes and smiles. You wake just before dawn. The city is silent. The stars linger a moment longer before retreating. You rise, dress, walk. No destination, only direction. You pass the place behind the granary. The feather is still there. So is the pebble. The water has dried, but the soil is darker, softer. A single sprout has emerged, barely an inch tall. Its leaves are thin, trembling, but they are green, unmistakably green. Life has taken root in the grave of a forgotten god. You kneel, not to pray, to witness. Not every god is born in thunder. Some are planted in silence, and when they are buried, not all stay dead. Time passes in the way only ruins understand. Days soften, shapes blur, stones forget their edges, and names that were once whispered with trembling devotion slip into the cracks between bricks, dissolving syllable by syllable until nothing remains but the hush of wind through broken halls. You find yourself walking among what was once a temple. There are no signs left, no plaques, no guards, just toppled columns, sun-bleached and half-swallowed by soil, and fragments of wall where faded carvings cling like ghosts to the surface. You step carefully, your sandals brushing over scattered shards, bits of pottery, pieces of reliefs, the corner of what might have once been a ceremonial tablet. The air is dry but still. Not dead, just paused. The silence here isn't empty, it watches. You feel it as you pass beneath what remains of an arch, two leaning stones that meet only because they've forgotten how to fall. The ground beyond opens into a courtyard now roofless, its floor cracked and furred with stubborn green weeds. And there at the far end a statue. Not tall, not grand, but intact. That in itself is strange. Time thieves and war have stripped this place bare. But this one figure remains half buried, leaning back into a recess of stone cloaked in vine and dust. You approach slowly, your breath catching as the face comes into view. Not divine, not monstrous, human. Soft cheeks, closed lips, eyes open but calm, gazing not outward but just past you, as if watching something in memory. One hand rests on its lap, the other is missing. The folds of its robe are simple, its feet are bare. You kneel before it, not in worship, in wondering. The base of the statue is etched with writing barely legible. Not cuneiform, not any formal script, just lines scratched by a hand unsure of itself. You trace them with your fingers. One fragment stands out. She listened to the ones no one else heard. That's all. No name, no title, no god or goddess, just that. You return the next day with a jug of water. There are no rituals, no incantations. You pour the water slowly at the statue's feet, watching it soak into the cracked earth. A bird lands on a nearby wall and chirps once, then flies off. The sun casts a narrow shadow across the face, and for a moment the stone looks warm. You leave a piece of bread, not because you expect it to be eaten, but because something in you insists on the gesture. Over the next weeks, others begin to appear. A flower tucked into the crook of the statue's missing arm. A ribbon red fraying tied around the base. A stone flat white balanced atop the head. No one claims responsibility. You watch from a distance as strangers come and go, sometimes just standing, sometimes whispering, sometimes weeping. The ruin begins to change. Not rebuild, not restore, but breathe. The weeds around the courtyard grow thicker. Blossoms emerge where none had grown in years. Birds gather in the mornings, then disappear before noon. A cat takes to sleeping beside the statue's feet. Still no priest arrives. No official shrine is declared. There are no sermons, no doctrines, no promises, only presence. One evening, as the sky turns amber and the air smells of fig and smoke, a boy comes to the statue with a broken flute. He sits cross-legged, places the flute to his lips and plays. The sound is rough, breathy, full of gaps. But it's music, of a kind. The statue does not respond, but the wind shifts. A breeze rises cool against your face, swirling around the boy as he plays. The notes falter, then steady. The melody is simple, perhaps something from his village or something he's inventing as he goes. You close your eyes, and you see her, not the statue, but the one it remembers. A woman, middle-aged, barefoot, hair bound in cloth, carrying a clay bowl through a crowded street. She stops to help an old man lift a fallen bundle. She listens as a girl describes a nightmare. She lights a small lamp and places it in an alley where a child once died. She is not worshipped, but remembered. Later you ask an old man who sells dates nearby if he knows who the statue is. He shrugs. No name, he says. Used to be the lady of listening, they said, or maybe the lady who waits. My grandmother used to leave honey here. Said it kept her dreams quiet. He spits a date pit into the dust. Not a real god, just someone who stayed. You thank him, but you disagree. That is the most real kind. One night a storm rolls in from the west. The wind howls. Rain pelts the stone. The sky splits with lightning and the city hides beneath roofs and behind shutters. But when morning comes, the statue still stands. Clean, as if washed. The bread is gone. The ribbon is untied. The flute is missing. In their place a single feather. And beside it, carved into the newly softened earth, a fresh mark. She hears. Just that. Nothing else. No signature. No title. You stare at it for a long time. Then you sit beside the statue, not as a pilgrim, not as a guide, not even as a witness. Just with her. And you listen. To the wind. To the birds. To the things no one else hears. The years pass. Not in leaps, not in sudden collapse, but like sand gathering in the corners of a forgotten room. Slowly, quietly, without announcement. The temple becomes a courtyard. The courtyard becomes a rumor. The rumor becomes dust. You walk the streets of the city and realize that no one says her name anymore. Not because they fear her, but because they've grown used to the silence. Still the statue remains. You visit her less now, though not out of neglect. Life folds around you like the walls of a clay jar. Work, faces, sleep, the rhythm of living. But somewhere between each breath she is there, a presence, like a soft weight in the corner of the room that doesn't move but watches. One morning the girl with the water bowl returns. She's no longer a child, taller now, eyes older, hands rough from labor. She carries a jar slung over her back not for offerings but for trade. She walks with purpose but stops when she sees the statue. Her breath catches, her shoulders lower. She steps into the courtyard like one entering memory. You watch from across the square. She kneels, brushes away some fallen petals, and places a single stone at the statue's base. Then she does something unexpected. She speaks. "I thought I forgot you," she says, "but you never left me." The statue, of course, does not answer, but the wind shifts, just slightly. That night the city feels thinner. The sky is too clear, the stars too many. The sound of your own footsteps echoes longer than it should. Windows are shuttered tighter than usual. Dogs refuse to bark. Somewhere a child cries in its sleep and cannot be soothed. You wake before dawn with the taste of salt in your mouth. Not tears, not sea, just salt. You dress and walk before the sun has risen, drawn by something you don't quite name. The streets are empty, the sky still wrapped in the gray of not yet day. You pass the market square, the well, the steps worn smooth by hundreds of years of sandals. And then you hear it, singing, soft, low, a melody that loops back on itself like thread pulled through cloth. You follow the sound. It leads you to a part of the city you don't recognize, or perhaps a place you once knew and forgot. The walls here lean inward, the air smells of ash and fennel, the stones under your feet are older than roads. You turn a corner and see them, a group of 5, 3 women, 2 men, kneeling in a circle around a hollow in the ground. Each holds a small lamp flickering with tallow and herbs. In the center a statue, but not the same one. Smaller, cruder, formed of clay not stone, shaped by hand. Not carved but pressed and molded and painted with ash and soot. No face, only 2 small indentations for eyes. No hands, only a simple curve of shoulders and belly. Not beautiful, not grand, but alive. One of the women begins to speak. Not a chant, not a prayer. A story about a girl who once poured water for the statue. About a woman who buried a god beneath a granary. About a child who walked into a marsh and came back changed. Each sentence is offered like a brick in a wall. And as the story unfolds, the others nod. Not in agreement, but in remembering. You step closer. They see you. The woman speaking gestures for you to join. You kneel. Someone hands you a lamp. It's warm, sticky with oil. The story continues past now from one to the next. The goddess who listens. The god who became wind. The statue who washed itself in a storm. You add your voice. Tell of the song you heard from a man with silver hair and a cracked lyre. Tell of the bird that watched from a rooftop and never returned. Tell of the sprout that grew from forgotten soil. When you finish, no one claps. They just breathe. And the lamps flicker once together like lungs exhaling. Dawn breaks behind the ruined tower. The city stirs, but here in this quiet circle something shifts. The statue remains clay, but the air around it changes. It thickens, like memory, like gravity. One of the men reaches forward and presses his palm to the statue's chest. Then he looks up and whispers, "She is awake." No one replies. They don't need to. You leave just as the sun crests the horizon. The lamps are left to burn. The stories will remain, and somewhere beneath your ribs something old stretches its limbs. In the days that follow you see signs. A spiral scratched into a doorframe. A feather tucked behind a market stall's cloth. A child drawing a circle in the dirt, then erasing it, then drawing it again. The goddess is not coming back. She was never gone. She just changed shape, shifted into the stories, into the gestures, into the hands that still reach without asking for return. One evening you return to the original courtyard. The stone statue remains but weathered. One side of her face has crumbled. The vines are gone. Only a few people remember to visit now. But that's enough. You kneel, place a piece of bread by her feet, and as you rise you whisper one word. Not a name, not a title, just a word, still. And then you walk away, not because you're finished, but because you finally understand. The gods never leave. They just change where they wait. The museum is quiet. Not with silence exactly. There is the hum of electricity, the creak of old floorboards, the distant shuffle of shoes, but the hush here feels intentional, almost reverent. You walk through halls lit by soft bulbs, past glass cases and numbered placards, each one containing the remains of what someone once believed would last forever. It smells faintly of dust and time, the kind of scent that lingers in paper, in dried leaves, and objects that haven't been touched in a long while. You pass a statue missing its head, a tablet too cracked to read, a bronze amulet behind glass tarnished and green with age, its etchings almost erased. No one else is in this wing of the building. Only you, the relics, and the faint echo of your own breath. At the end of the hall you find her, or rather what's left of her. Not the goddess herself, just a fragment, a piece of clay no larger than your palm encased in glass mounted upright on a velvet base. It's labeled simply Unidentified Female Deity. Origin Sumerian. 21st century BCE. There is no face, only the curve of a shoulder, part of an arm, and a hint of what might once have been a hand resting over the heart. You lean closer. The description says little. Theories, dates, the usual uncertainty of archaeologists trying to define something that was never meant to be defined. A guess, a gesture. But you know, this is her, the one who waited, the one who listened. The one who was buried beneath granaries, remembered in seeds, carried in songs sung with broken flutes, and whispered to by people who had no words left. You stare at the fragment for a long time, and then you notice something. Carved just beneath the edge, almost missed in the lighting, 3 small scratches. Not decorative, not part of any known script, just a mark. 3 lines intersecting, like the one the diggers made in the dust, like the ones left in chalk on alley walls, like the ones that mean here lies memory. You smile. It is not a joyous smile. It is the kind of smile that comes when you find an old friend and realize they've been with you the whole time. Behind you a girl enters the hall. She's young, no more than 10, with a notebook pressed to her chest and a pencil clutched tightly in her fist. She pauses by the doorway, then edges in, slowly, drawn not by curiosity but by something quieter. She walks past the other exhibits, past the lion statues, the spearheads, the golden cup. She stops beside you, looks up at the fragment, and tilts her head. You glance at her, then back at the glass. Do you know who she is? You ask softly. She shrugs. I don't think anyone knows, she says. You nod. But she's not finished. She looks like someone who remembers secrets. You look at the clay. Yes, you say, she does. The girl opens her notebook. She draws, not carefully, not academically, just lines, curves, a rough shape. The shoulder, the arm, the hand over the heart. Then beside it, she adds something that wasn't in the glass. A face, not divine, not regal, just calm. Eyes open, lips closed. A gaze that says, I hear you. The girl closes the notebook, nods once, then walks away. You remain. You stare at the fragment a little longer. You wonder how many more of her pieces lie buried, mislabeled, mistaken for something else. How many gods like her, modest, tender, silent, have been lost to stories that preferred thunder and crowns. And yet, she is here, not whole, but enough. Outside the city moves like breath. Cars pass, lights flicker, a bus hisses to a stop. Somewhere someone laughs, somewhere else someone cries alone. The world spins forward, but you walk slower now. Each step feels like a word spoken in an old prayer. Not to change anything, just to witness. You pass a child playing with stones beside a storefront. She stacks them into a small tower, then circles it with chalk, her tongue between her teeth in concentration. You pass an old man sitting on a stoop, hands cupped around a paper cup, eyes fixed on nothing. As you pass, he mutters something, a name maybe, or just a sigh that remembers how to shape itself. You pass a dog curled up beneath a bench, guarding a bundle of feathers and bones like an offering. And each time you feel her, not as a presence behind you, but beside. Within, everywhere something quiet resists being forgotten, she is. Everywhere a hand moves without reward, she is. Everywhere someone listens, she listens too. That night you dream. You stand at the edge of a wide field. The sky above is full of stars, not scattered but aligned like script. In the center of the field stands a door. No walls, just the door. It's made of wood and clay, painted in colors the earth no longer remembers. Symbols dance along its surface, circles. Feathers, water lines, the mark of 3 intersecting lines. You open it, and on the other side is nothing. Not emptiness, but space. Ready. Waiting. A place not for gods to rule, but for them to be remembered. You walk through. In the morning you wake before sunrise. You sit beside your window, watching the sky turn from violet to pale gold. You don't light incense. You don't bow. You don't whisper any names. You just breathe, and in that breath she is, the one who waited, the one who was buried, the one who sang from the corners of old rooms and watched as kings forgot. She is not waiting anymore. She has already returned, not in fire, not in miracle, but in you, and in those who remember, even if they don't know they do.